It's 6:33 on April 3rd, 2025. Welcome to the Select Board, Township Select Board meeting. We're gonna open up an executive session portion, and when that's done, around 7 o'clock, I'm gonna open up with the executive session portion, and around 7 o'clock, we'll have our open session portion. So I'm gonna please ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the executive session agenda.
Good evening. Tonight we have two items. Item number one is the strategy session to prepare for contract negotiation with non-bargaining unit employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A2 for the Town Administrator. Item number two is a strategy session to prepare for contract negotiations with non-bargaining unit employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, the DPW Director.
All right. As chair, I move that executive session is warranted for the aforementioned agenda items, and I move that we go into executive session.
Should we approve the agenda? Do we vote to approve the agenda?
Yeah, I haven't always done that, but sure, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I would start by making a motion to approve the agenda as read by the Assistant Town Administrator.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. So then I would,
Actually, I have to
second.
make the motion.
Yeah, go
sorry.
go
You
ahead.
second my motion that I
I
said.
just got to second it. You already said it. Yeah,
Very good. Okay, all in favor to move in executive session, say aye.
Aye.
That has to be a roll call.
You, right, it does
Oh, right.
executive session. Paul, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I might as well. All right, please start the recording. Yeah, welcome back. This is again the April 3rd. It's what we said. It's 7:06 on April 3rd, 2025. Welcome to the open session portion of the Town of Sherborn Select Board meeting. I'd like to begin by please asking the Assistant Administrator to please read the open session agenda.
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. I have not had any requests for public comments tonight. Items can be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance will be added. Item number one is the consideration of comment letter to Mass Housing by April 14th, 2025 for the proposed 40B Washington Street Sherborn Homes. Item number two is the review of the 2025 annual warrant, revote and sign. Item number three is to review and consider the 2025 draft ballot questions. Item number four is consideration of appointments to the Sherborn Arts Cultural Council, Christina Winterfeld for a term to expire April 3rd, 2028, and Alexandra Frank for a term to expire April 3rd, 2028. Item number five is the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan update. Jeremy Marset and Nicole Weimer, Chair of the Disability Advisory Committee, is here. Item number six is review and update of ARPA fund projects. Discussion not limited to the items listed below. Woodhaven Leland Water Project, irrigation of Laurel Fields, farm pond stormwater, classification and comp study, historical space design. Item number seven is review and update of Pine Hill School HVAC replacement costs. Item number eight is the consent agenda, which is payroll warrant and draft minutes. Item number nine is select board reports, and item number 10 is town administrator updates, state and federal budget project funding resources, staffing updates, board of assessors, hazard mitigation plan update, Jameson Field lighting project, Brush Hill cell tower, and North Sherborn water sewer district.
Excellent, thank you, Don. Any amendments or motions relative to the agenda?
Just a question. I thought I saw something that said that the letter to Mass Housing was extended.
It is extended.
April 22nd. And here it says April 14th.
Right, it was just extended.
It was extended to the 22nd.
Yeah, it just came in yesterday or today.
It was just amended yesterday.
Okay, so yeah, so I didn't have time to modify the agenda. I don't just want to modify the agenda, or at least acknowledge when we got to the agenda item that the date is actually the 22nd.
Yeah, but given the fact that it is still coming up,
Yep.
even though it's not quite as quick,
We should discuss it.
we need to discuss.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying to take it off the agenda. I
Oh,
was just gonna
okay.
say delete the words by April 14th, 2025. Just have it
Oh, right,
consideration
okay.
comment letter to Mass Housing.
Okay,
Although don't, remember, this is an agenda that was written 48 hours before that change. These aren't minutes, so
Yeah.
minutes can do it, you know what I mean?
Right.
This doesn't actually have to reflect, this reflects 48 hours.
right, I'll put it in the minutes, it was amended.
All right, so any motions or modifications to the agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so with that, first on the agenda is the proposed 40B on Washington Street. I guess first question, first in the beginning, does the select board wish to issue a letter? And if so, what do we want the nature of that letter to be?
Well, we should definitely issue a letter, and what we've done typically, Mary and I did a bunch of them, is that we got all the letters from each board and committee, the relevant ones, Board of Health, Conservation, all the relevant boards. And we created a composite letter, which is a condensed version, and then we attached the letters of each department to it. So that was what our response, so I would propose that we do the same here.
Yeah, we have a good template that we've
Very
used
good
before.
template, yeah.
Murchison has seen it now several times.
Yeah.
You'll be familiar.
I mean, I agree to a limited point. I would like to insert some select board opinion to it, because I've seen a couple letters which are kind of in contradiction to each other. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
So with that, I don't know if you can fully state everything. Do you know what I mean?
Well, what we do is we write the letter, maybe I misspoke, it gives the highlights of the boards, but it expresses the select board's opinion also
Okay.
in one letter. We write a letter, a cover letter, but it's usually like 2 or 3 pages, I would say roughly. And then some of the committees give you a 10-page letter depending on the impact. Like this is right on the Bailey Trail, okay? So it's gonna be, Concom's gonna be pretty extensive, but it's a
Yeah.
composite letter with select board wording in it, not just summarizing the other ones. I probably misspoke.
Jeff is right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I think we, given that we might have some space in this particular agenda tonight, it might be worth getting some select board thoughts together.
And I think we should, because it's due the 22nd. We have one meeting before that, that's the 17th.
Yeah,
We should probably give some input maybe for Jeremy to draft something that we can review. Do you know what I mean? Like, we should actually speak to what our intent is, what our thoughts are. And Jeremy can eloquently put it together and then do what you said, attachment of the other letters and stuff like that.
yeah, we could. I mean, we've done that within the board before, and, Jeremy does amazing and fast work. I don't know how he does it.
Well, the only thing I would add though is that this will be our second letter, because we did this letter for this property, I think, for a 40-unit
right.
apartment complex. They
Yeah.
already have
This is
a
This is a
letter,
pretty different,
which is probably
project,
a similar, obviously impact of, was it 4 houses now? I think they made it
Yeah.
4 instead of 5.
two duplexes.
Yeah, so, but it's the same property we already commented on before, so the.
It is, but
Right,
the
but it's very
proposals, it's
different.
like,
Very
it's
different.
almost different.
Yeah, no, I know it is, but,
Difference between like a carrot stick and like a Wagyu ribeye. I mean, it's like, it's not even apples. to
well,
oranges.
yes, but the Bailey Trail and the little basin there, what's it called? I mean, the peculiarities of the land are still in.
Yeah, these are the same
Yeah,
topography.
Just a-
So with that, I mean, I'll open up. Well, what are our thoughts on this proposed development? I believe it's 2 duplexes, correct? 1 affordable, 3 market rate. There are, I'm a bit cautious as he has other by right proposals around it between the A&Rs and stuff like that around there. I don't know how much we chime in or factor that into it. We just look at the 4 units that are proposed. But anyway, I'll start.
I think we can look at it both ways. I mean, I would first look at it, the 4 units that are proposed and the 4 acres that they're on.
Yeah.
And given that, I think it's a reasonable proposal. It's a lot better than what we had before, but we shouldn't take that into account. We have to just judge what we have before us.
Yeah.
Uh,
And is
I
this
think-
zone, is it a 2-acre zone, this
It's a
location?
2-acre zone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if
And-
he were to do A&Rs, he would basically be able to do 2 single-family houses?
If he doesn't have the frontage, I'm not sure he has the frontage even to do that.
I see.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. But this way, we get 1 more affordable unit, we get some smaller homes, which is good.
Mhm.
And in general, I totally understand the groundwater committee's concerns about the whole area, and I share those, but, and I understand his concerns about depth to bedrock and depth to groundwater, but that's kind of not our bailiwick. We'll wait and see what we hear from Board of Health on that, and from groundwater protection. But in general, I think it's a reasonable project
And
for the land that it's on.
And I'll add that those students, of course, have to adhere to what's the state septic rules?
Title V.
Title V.
But all the surrounding ones have to do the more stringent Sherborn, requirements.
Mhm.
So with that, I mean, you're right, I'll defer to the Board of Health in particular to look at the specifics of it. But with that, I'm just not as concerned yet, you know what I mean? Unless they,
Right.
but I'll identify something, whatever else, I'm just not as concerned yet.
Mhm.
And just like you, I think, you have to take case by case, but like these kind of called small pop-up 40Bs that are happening, you know,
Mhm.
4 here, 4 there and stuff like that. It's less, we'll have to go with like regulated water supply and it, essentially it's just kind of, it's kind of more in tune, I think, with Sherborn's growth rate, what we want to see, and also promotes affordable housing. I mean, these mega developments of like, 32 and 40 and all these other different things just get a little concerning, as kind of rapid growth in Sherborn. I have to say overall, well, looking into the details closely, I like what I saw in that proposal.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
I
it's,
agree.
So I think we can, is that enough for you to
Yeah,
leave in something?
all of the various boards and committees have been alerted already. Jamie's done that. Many attended the site walk that was held just last week. I think 2 letters have come in thus far, so.
some of the, I think it's a lower
Planning board and
traffic, but it's right
groundwater,
opposite Old Orchard. The original project, which was way larger, we got a lot of traffic concerns from the Old Orchard people. Well, this is only 4 homes.
Of course, when we have an apartment building, then it's down to 4 homes, makes 4 homes
Yeah.
look really good, right? But no, seriously, as far as development and appropriateness for Sherborn, I agree with the planning board on this. On the other hand, the devil's in the details in water and sewer, but we'll let other committees deal with that.
Yeah, and we can put something in that, we want to see the details or some of those lines.
Are they, I haven't looked at these, but could be a case where it could be a composite septic system rather than one per property. What if you put in one septic that served 4
They
homes?
could under Title
Yeah.
V.
It is one septic.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I've seen
And
these.
they presented it to the Board of Health already.
Yeah. So that's an improvement also.
Of course, I anticipate, Jeannie, you may tell me I'm wrong, but I would anticipate the Board of Health would say, but you can't just look at this 40B project, you have to look at the larger property and
Right.
take into account the nitrogen loading and everything else for the whole
Yeah, because
land.
it abuts those Greenwood homes on the backside, I think.
Right, he's got the 4 lots on Greenwood, plus he's pretty open about developing a little further down. I think he wants to put 3 or 4 single-family homes there.
Yeah, the latest one is 2 single-family homes adjacent to this 40B. And they seem on paper to follow all the rules
They're on
in
Washington Street?
terms on Washington
Yeah.
Street. And they both have enough frontage. So, yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
See what comes in.
The only last comment I'll make, at risk of making, continuing this on things that aren't under our purview. You talk about looking at holistically. I'll be cautious on that, because many of these are by right. And I know that he doesn't have to show us all at once. He's criticized for not doing that past. So I'm not sure how much the Board of Health legally can either force like a nitrogen loading study or an environmental impact study. And I think that's been some of the contention, in the past there, especially with the A&Rs. Because he could just come back and do them later, but he's kind of being transparent, and I want to kind of applaud him for that, for showing the big picture what he wants to do, because that could be risky to that. But right now, it's for others to decide. Okay, moving on. Annual town meeting warrant, revote and sign. I believe, thank you, Jeannie, for coming here. You should be at the fireside. I think this is just some tweaks to some of the zoning stuff. Is that what this was?
Yes.
Some.
Yeah,
Yes, and we changed the numbers for the turf field, that's in there also.
Excellent. That's something I was looking for.
So you can't do this, it's not legal.
meaning we have to open the warrant if we wanted to do it?
No, this warrant's issued and closed and done.
Yeah,
So at this point, we have to issue a new supplemental warrant for a special town meeting at the same time as the annual town meeting. And put in the new zoning article.
okay.
The Attorney General is gonna have to review zoning articles and they give it a lot of scrutiny. And if they say you should have warrant to have one zoning bylaw in it, and you voted a different zoning bylaw, you can do that as a motion to amend with the help of the advisory committee. But if you want to put it in the warrant itself, you can't rewrite the warrant after it's issued.
Yeah, go ahead, Chairman, please.
Yeah, just a question, I guess a question for Paul. So Jackie's on as well, town clerk. If the town clerk and the constables have not yet signed the warrant that you folks signed, does
Doesn't
that
matter.
have any bearing on the discussion?
The point is, did we sign and issue it? And as just as a matter of historic information, I have been consistently over more than a decade saying that the warrant needs to be issued 45 days before the advisory committee hearing. So that there's a chance, not just for advisory to have it, and we issued it the day of the advisory hearing, but the public needs to have it so they can think about it and have a meaningful hearing that the public can be heard, which means it needs to be published well before then. But this year, we only issued it on the morning of the advisory committee hearing. Then you can't turn around and say a week later, whoops, the thing that's been heard already by advisory, we're changing to a different warrant.
Now, the 7 years I've been on board, not once have we signed it 45 days before the advisory hearing.
No,
Like, not
I,
even close.
Should we
We
start
pretty
the,
much, in fact, we've done like, we had voting to support before advisory hearing, well more than the last 7 years.
yeah,
We've done
Our
this.
voting to support is the issue. It's the issue of the warrant. I had proposed to one board that I do a article for town meeting saying that the advisory committee can't have a hearing until 45 days elapse from the date of the issuance of the warrant, which means they'll have a meeting in August to hear if we keep going. It's just so easy to let things go, but the point of preparing a warrant is that's supposed to be done in February, essentially. January, February, November. We start in other towns working on warrants in September and October.
so should we be doing that?
Yeah.
So we should be starting our process of creating the warrant a month and a half before we traditionally do?
Here's what I'd like to do. I want our town council's opinion on this. I really do, because not only have we never done that in 7 years, but it's the first I've even heard of that reservation. I've never even heard.
I'm in favor of starting the whole thing earlier.
That makes sense. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Like-
It does get tough though, because you literally have to almost issue a warrant
he's the
like 3
chair.
months
not
after.
me.
You have to issue a warrant like just a few months after the previous town meeting, like nothing gets to develop.
Well, you also have, the budget makers have a deadline, usually it's the end of the calendar year, to prepare their budget for the following.
Yeah, you need
fiscal
to
year.
actually operate a little bit to know what to expect.
See-
I don't think that's real. I'd like an opinion
Yeah.
from Chris on this.
And just a quick, because we send out the advisory hearing notice. It has to be in the households 5 days prior to advisory's hearing. And in that notice, it says the town warrant will be posted prior to the meeting
Mm-hmm.
on the website. It doesn't say that it has to be signed, it just says the warrant will be posted prior to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we posted the warrant, I think like the day before
Mm-hmm.
the advisory hearing. So, I don't know whether Jackie has anything else to add to this, because
She's-
she's on, but we kind of looked at it because it wasn't signed by her and it wasn't posted by a constable, that it wasn't like set in stone.
The warrant's the warrant. When you say a warrant, you mean a warrant, not a piece of paper that's nothing. And when I said 45 days, I'm not saying there is a law that says 45 days. I've said, should I file a citizen petition requiring 45 days in order to stimulate people to address things earlier? I never did submit such an article. I don't want to have to submit an article. I want to see some flexibility. But after the hearing, after the warrant's been signed and voted on and approved, to now say we're going to change the stuff that we heard, You just cannot do that.
I still have an opinion from council, on this here. I can help you, chat room. The first one will be an opinion about, legally, can we make this modification? We can after advisory's hearing and whatever, I'll just say it. After advisory's hearing and everything else, like, can we, make these changes here? And then we can ask a bit more about some of the timeframe stuff, decide how to do that.
The only thing I would say is there's only two articles that I see, 17 and 20, and they changes look to be almost correcting typos. In other words, if you look at that one, it's got a footnote listed as footnote 2, and it should be footnote 3. So it's not changing the content or the intent.
It's okay if I recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he might chime in on what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just gonna really second what Jeff said, that I think the changes are, the above the line changes are very, very minor. And they did actually get flagged for advisory, and that copy of the changes got sent to everybody 4 or 5 days ago. And there was a brief mention last night and an opportunity for people to check in with the town planner on those changes. So, and yesterday was still part of advisory's public hearing, was the last
Okay.
continuation of the public hearing. So I don't know exactly what bearing that has on things, but none of these changes would come as a surprise to advisory, or there wouldn't be any sense of, oh my gosh, the warrant changed, advisory considered something different. Everybody on advisory knew about, as of last night, really before last night, what all these changes were, and had an opportunity to register any concerns or objections that they might have had.
Yeah, but
they did come
I do
within
also think
the
that
hearing.
Paul's point is sort of more philosophical though, right?
yeah.
This time, they're minor changes, right? But the point stands that, look, we issued the warrant, we signed it, we gave it to you, you had a whole hearing about it, you extended your hearing, and now we're going to change it? Like, that does seem preposterous to me. So,
Well, may I ask, what's the point of the advisory public hearing if you can't touch a letter of the warrant as a result of that
It's not
hearing?
changing the warrant. Advisory can make a motion that changes what's in the warrant. So if there's typos in the warrant, the way to fix the typos in the warrant is for when the motion is made by the planning board or by advisory, you fix everything and you give the motion.
You're saying at town meeting or
At town
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
at town meeting.
we've done it before where things that are not substantive changes, advisory simply throws in a minor amendment, a correction really, into the motion, like move favorable action with the following,
Minor
amendment, in line 3 where it says they, it should say them,
It's not worth the risk with the Attorney General looking at this stuff. They're gonna wanna know what was published, when, where, how, all that kind of stuff the town clerk has to file. And if they see a different thing, and it's so easy to fix it, you fix it in the motions that are made at town meeting. So when you meet with town council, you give them all the edits, and they make the motion at town meeting. Or if you really want all the voters to have this in the warrant, then you just call a special town meeting for that article. And on this article, you vote no action. And then when the special town meeting is called for the same night, you get to the article, then you pass the article with this thing's done.
I'm gonna recognize Jackie.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm shaking my head. Please do not do a special town meeting. We did reach out to Heather White. She had no problem, but if Paul and the rest of the select board's really concerned about it, I think that the motion, we should just change it. They are so minor. They are basically grammatical errors that need to be corrected. So maybe we should just put it in the motion. I don't know if Jeremy has anything to say about it. But I am not in favor of doing, I think that would be absolutely more confusing to do a
So I'll
special
just-
town meeting and do a different article.
I'll say this, and if you have an opinion from council that in this specific case that we can actually revoke this, I'm fine doing it either way. I'll leave it up to the board. Someone makes a motion either way, or either they, you can make a motion that we recommend advisory, put it in their motion, or if you just want to simply approve these changes, I honestly am fine either way at this point.
I'll move that we ask advisory to incorporate this stuff into their motion.
I'll second that.
I third it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, moving on, very good.
Dan's like, are you free people?
If we're going to 2 nights at town, it's gonna be so complicated with so much to explain to people.
All right.
Okay, consideration of draft ballot questions. Have a draft before you here.
And what is this we're doing? Sorry.
Draft ballot questions?
Is that what?
Draft ballot question.
Draft
Yeah, the
ballot.
draft ballots, I'll
Yeah.
number 3. There's some draft questions in your background material here.
Mhm.
The usual, like, borrowing exempt, clerk converted from, voted to appointed.
There's 7 in total.
The actual number should be in there though, right?
I had a question, because I missed a meeting.
Yep.
So like the first ballot question is to vote the turf field, and if you recall, my position on the turf field was no, unless the environmental stuff was done. And said I would be willing to reconsider if the environmental stuff was done, and then you all had a meeting. Are we doing an override for the turf field, or is it gone, or has it been fixed, or changed, or what happened?
We heard a presentation at the selectmen meeting, which was a COVID advisories hearing, a presentation from, who was it, the business manager?
Dawn.
Don Couture.
From
Regional
schools. Advisory voted, I believe, 5-3 to support the article, what's that?
7-1.
7-1.
Oh, 7-1.
Turfield was 5-3.
A couple people changed, yeah.
Voted 7-1 to support positive motion to, for the exempt borrowing for the artificial turf field. The select board did not change our vote, so it didn't revote, so the 4-1 against still stands.
All right, but with advisory voting of favorable action, I want to include that ballot question. So I would move approval of all these ballot questions.
Right, could I add something about the advisory and select board vote on the turf field ballot question?
Sure, yeah.
I talked with Dan Sigil today because I wanted to know that, and I would expect at town meeting, if advisory or anyone asks, how did the select board vote? And the vote was 4-1 against, that the question is very likely to come up, well, what was the position of the select board? And I proposed to Dan that one of us who has voted against be prepared to give a 2-minute summary of why the select board voted 4-1, rather than us individually having to go down and cobble
I think
together.
that's a good idea, yeah.
We haven't done that before in a situation, but if you want, we can. You know,
Well,
I get that, or
I
whatever,
do
someone
want,
can
and
it.
that's why I asked.
Well, it won't be a happenstance. Dan, you can correct me, but he always asked the chair, how did the select board vote before? So
Yes.
it's gonna come up that way, and we're gonna say that, it's definitely gonna come up, and we're gonna say 4-1 opposed.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely report everyone,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
do wanna know that, like.
So it'd only be if some member of the town meeting directly asked the select board, hey, can you explain your vote?
Yeah,
which-
that's okay too. It can
Yeah.
happen that way.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to
When
do
that
it
does-
just of
Yeah,
our
yeah.
own initiative.
Yes,
Okay, I agree with that
but we
totally. I
should
think that's the
prepare
best way. So
it, either way.
we should be ready. And I think one of us who voted against,
Yeah.
and maybe it should be Steve. Steve has a
can.
great speaker.
so all questions go through the moderator can direct that back
Yeah,
to the
that's
board.
right.
If it
Yeah.
comes back to the board, Steve can maybe, speak to it, I mean, I do encourage you to also consider the new information, because I think that, you know, the new information is brought in with a different fill and stuff like
Oh,
that.
for sure. Yeah,
You know, it does
absolutely.
kind of change that a little bit,
Well,
and we decided not to
assuming,
go.
assuming the Brock fill, the better fill. Yeah.
And at that point, maybe I can give a minority report.
Well, maybe you can.
No, we
Maybe
only
we'll-
want one
maybe-
night town meeting.
Oh, I'm gonna filibuster this thing.
Eric, maybe
I'm
someone
gonna
will
tie down
ask.
Sarah Aggie so she can't move to the question. And
But the thing is, it may not be a 4-1 vote if there's gonna be this kind of fill, as I
Well,
said
then
at
that's
the
up to
time.
you to decide.
I might change my vote if they make a case for more environmentally safe things, so it might be 2
No,
to
it'd be
3.
3-1.
It'll be 3-2.
We all voted last night, or not last night,
Well,
was it last night?
No, we didn't revote it.
No.
We just chose,
Oh,
we chose to do
yeah,
nothing.
okay, it'll be 3-1, 3-2 or 4-1.
Yeah.
3-2.
So I see what Paul's saying, I see what
Yeah.
Paul's saying.
I'm
So,
saying, I might change that,
Yeah,
based on just one quick phrase that I heard here.
yes,
About, or from you about the changing, they're going away from chrome rubber to
yes.
Yes,
something else.
they're going
Yes.
from crumb rubber to Brockville.
If I had an opportunity to maybe
Yes.
hear more about that, I might very well change my vote, so by the time we get to town meeting, it may be I might be with,
Correct,
Yeah, which
that's
is fine,
correct.
which you can do.
which, I
yeah.
know what to say now, it's from my understanding, because this came up last night, that to reverse a vote, it has to be a motion and a second from the winning side. Is that true? Am I wrong?
So the motion has to be from the winning side, the second can be anybody.
Okay. And just, so I brought that up last night, I didn't quite know about that nuance. No one on the winning side wanted to move to change the vote. So only that happened, I guess, you would have to move to reopen the vote. I would have to second it, and then we could go through with it.
Yeah,
and
that's
it.
okay, I'm good
Or
with
I wouldn't
that.
have to be either, anyone can second it, anyone can second. But someone on the winning side has to essentially make the motion per se.
Okay, yeah, my point is that, rather than us one at a time going down and trying to say something, which would
Yeah,
take
yeah,
a
that's
lot
a
more
good-
time,
it's a
better
good
to just
suggestion.
summarize.
Well, I think I would make that comment from the stage, because that
From
would
the
be,
stage,
because that would be a question directed at the select board.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
And so,
Yeah, and so we're gonna check with,
Heather,
what's his name, Mike
General.
General.
yeah,
And also, after talking to Dan today, I went back into the medical and environmental literature and pulled out, say, 4 or 5 of the best review articles that looks at this, and just downloaded their abstracts and sent them to Dan, and I guess you got them. And I'm happy to send them to you guys if you want, but I won't force it on you.
I want to caution, even though it does say review of ATM town warrant, so actually you probably can't have this discussion. I'm not comfortable revoting tonight, if you wanted to revote. What do you think of the agenda item, review of ATM? If you wanted to revote, maybe put this on a next agenda, if you want to look at it. And Paul, what I encourage you to do is look at the recording of last night's meeting,
Mhm.
look at our background material.
And I'll send the background material just straight from the literature. It's not edited or anything.
yeah, if there's a way to give the kids a turf field, I want to support that. I want to support the athletics, I want to support the kids.
Okay,
And my issue only was, I didn't want to be killing them in the process of giving them a field. I wanted it to be safe for them.
well,
And
that's
if they-
exactly the issue.
yeah,
And if,
well, no, it's not the only issue, there's still concern about water contamination from a turf field
yes, I understand.
in
but
the
I
neighborhood,
put that in the,
not the kids in the neighborhood.
yes, all of that. But I have not read the materials for yesterday. I got
Right,
summoned out to something else before I got to the. So if you could, before town meeting, give us a chance, let me have a chance to read this stuff, and if you want to send me anything.
you would have received it, because we all got it, I think
No,
it came
I-
Tuesday night,
You just gotta convince someone, including me, to second your motion.
but we got the
And if seconding,
materials.
if seconding your, if
Yeah,
seconding your
but
motion prevents you from
The-
going down
the
the stage and giving a long
literature
speech,
search
I'll
that I
probably
put
second.
together,
the
I
motion.
only sent
There
to
you
Dan
go.
today.
oh, yeah.
But he hasn't seen the new data from the school either, it sounds like.
That's true.
Yeah, just watch the recording.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
background, look at the background material, I think it was given to an email to you anyway, look at the recording, that's all the information we had there. And if anyone else wants to reconsider,
But you guys don't have the background material from today, so
No.
I'll send it to you.
Diane, how does the 17th agenda look like?
Oh, very good, we can add something if you want.
Alright.
That's my son's birthday, the 17th.
You want to
Actually-
have the discussion for the turf field again, is that what you want to do?
Yeah, put it also generic, put review of ATM town warrant or whatever as well, just because, and then you put in whatever edits on that. Just in case we do wind up voting to change the warrant, because I do want to talk to council to make sure it's okay. And Stephen. Okay, that's right, actually, we weren't on the ATM, we were on the ballot questions. Any other motions or changes relative to the ballot?
I made a motion.
Yeah, you already
Any
moved.
motion? Okay.
They already approved it.
Second? Wait, did we
Did
second
vote
it?
on it?
Yeah,
We did?
yes, you did.
Oh,
Do you want to comment on the ballot question? It was brought up about having the number, the value
Yeah.
in the ballot questions. the value cannot be in the ballot.
Yeah, exactly.
So that ballot, the actual election ballot cannot include the value.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That information can be provided outside of the voting area on the way in.
Wow, how many times have I voted and not noticed that the ballot questions didn't have the
I think that
numbers?
would be a key.
I actually brought it up in advisory in the neighborhood of 8 years ago.
Okay,
And I learned what he just said.
great.
Before we leave the subject, I wanted to change the order of the questions, to put the town clerk question first
Okay,
and ahead of all the complicated questions.
okay.
Because I've seen, and I've heard reports of people starting off on these things and going down the first few and then giving up
Okay.
because they're in a hurry or the kid is crying or whatever it is.
Are you sure we voted on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bob made the motion, Jeff seconded.
No,
I
I'm, too many
did.
brain cells, I guess.
We can revote it if we're,
Yeah.
Do we have to revoke the
Wait,
change of order?
Yeah, we should probably revote it because you want to change the order, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Alright.
that'd be safe.
So let's approve the ballot question with just proposed change to move the town clerk to the one position as opposed to the last position.
Okay, so moved, do I have a second?
Second.
All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Nominations, appointments to the Sherborn Arts Cultural Council. With two before us, I'm assuming, is it two positions we're not
Yes,
assuming?
Christina Winterfeld is out of the country, so she can't be here tonight. But Alexandra Frank, I don't know if she's online, I did notify her.
I don't see her.
I didn't see her either.
So,
And I'm happy to move approval because as I understand the Arts Council, they have the ability to have quite a few members.
Yes, they do.
oh, I was gonna say, it's like these
Why
are the
would we-
fourth people that
They
we've,
have the ability, I think it's up to 20 or 22 members.
oh, okay.
Yes. So
Great.
why would we turn down two excellent choices? And I read the applications, and I'm not here to say what their qualifications are, but having read it
Sounds
and
like a
knowing what the
nice-
duties are of the Art Council, I welcome volunteers to come forward.
Mhm.
So I'd move that we approve the appointment of both of them for a term to end April 3rd, 2028.
Do I have a second there?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you for your patience very much. ADA transition plan here, I believe we have, who's it, Nicole?
Yes.
Good, okay, and Jeremy here. I don't know, you guys gonna start with a presentation?
I was just gonna talk about the Disability Advisory Committee a little bit, so that, just assuming that you don't know that much about what we're doing, and so I was gonna do a little bit of talking about background, and what we've started doing, and if you wanna take over and talk about the actual grants. Sound good?
Sounds good.
My name is Nicole Wiemeyer. I'm the current chair of the Disability Advisory Committee. I thought I'd just read you a little bit of the summary that I put in the annual report, because it's pretty concise and gives you an idea of what we are. The Disability Advisory Committee was established in 2008 to help ensure that the town of Sherborn's buildings, public spaces, services, policies, and programs are accessible to all people, including those with disabilities. I joined the board I think it was 2019, and the Disability Advisory Committee was a little inactive during the pandemic. But in the fall of 2023, the committee came together and we made plans for the 2024 year. The select board was kind enough to reconfigure our board to 5 members. We were having trouble filling the 7 spots. And as of now, we filled all 5 spaces. Just quickly, we have Kevin Stevenson, who's active on several boards. David Kareem, he is a longtime community volunteer on many boards and committees. They were new members and they joined current members Frank Hess, Kathy Horgan Dye, and myself. And in addition, we were really lucky to have Kelly McClintock offer to be on our board as an associate member. And at our first meeting, I was appointed chair and Kelly was appointed secretary. And I do believe everybody took a step backwards and left me standing up front.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
During 2024, the DAC successfully applied for and was awarded a $50,000 grant from the Massachusetts Office on Disability, MOD, to conduct a self-evaluation of Sherborn's public buildings, public spaces, programs, activities, information, and services for compliance with the requirements of the Title II of the ADA. We also put in the grant to conduct a townwide survey on disability needs and concerns, and also to provide training to all public employees and officials for taking the necessary steps to remove barriers to accessibility in our community. This self-evaluation and transition plan, which we'll talk more about, is being led by the Edward J. Collins Jr. Center of Public Management at UMass Boston. And it will be completed by the end of this June, so it's a quick moving grant. I think it's important to note that it is by law, we have to have a self-evaluation and transition plan for the ADA if we have more than 50 employees in a town, and I think Sherborn is now above the 50 employees. So this is something by law that we should have, and so we are very fortunate to receive a grant to help us get in place. Just a couple notes on our progress so far. We have a subcontractor that's, I think, beginning the physical inventory of the town buildings and the public spaces, so we'll have that all put together for us. Our townwide survey was kicked off just 2 days ago, April 1st. It's a very simple one-question, open-ended survey. Its intent is to get community members to tell us their experiences with accessibility in our town. QR code, these, you might have seen them hanging up. They're going to be around town. We've publicized in the paper, on the website. Jeremy has put on. The Council on Aging is going to put it into their link. The library is going to promote it. And this will go on for 2 months. So if people don't want to hear from me a lot, they just get in their survey pretty quick. But we're hoping to get a lot of people to participate. And then we have 2 dates on the calendar for the Collins Center to come in to help our employees and volunteers and any member of the community who are involved on boards or committees to learn about how to best provide access to our citizens. Jeremy can talk more about that, but I'm just going to give you quickly our current and our future goals. The committee, once this grant is put through, we'd like to review and update our mission statement and our charge that's from the select board and submit a new revised one for your approval and review. We'd like to create and expand our webpage for the Disability Advisory Committee to include resource information and updates for the disability community. We'd like to follow up on the results of the accessibility study and the self-evaluation and pursue implementation to ensure that Sherborn is compliant with the laws of the ADA. And we want to consider ways to raise awareness in Sherborn of our disability community and how to promote inclusion and accessibility in all of our programs and services. And I just want to say something about the committee. It's made up with a lot of people that have direct connections to people in the disability community. We have people who have connections to people with physical disabilities, with intellectual disabilities, the deaf community, our aging community, and progressive disabilities. So it's a really great committee. They're really enthusiastic, and I'm kind of psyched that we're back and moving forward. And I just wanted to tell you a little about my own experience coming to the board. I came to this town in 2011, I believe, and I have 4 children, and I think my son Reese, who has physical disabilities, he was going into 2nd grade, and we just had such an amazing experience coming to Sherborn, and I was just so deeply touched by it. I had neighbors coming to welcome us to town. We had an amazing 2nd grade teacher for my son Reese, who had all of the classmates write letters and pictures for him, welcoming him to the classroom. And she was just amazing at thinking outside the box. And she realized that when they have circle time, all the kids would sit on the floor on their little circles. And she realized that Reese wouldn't be able to sit on the floor. And so she went out and bought those 5-gallon buckets from Home Depot. And they had, they just kept them stacked in the corner of the room. And when it was circle time, they would take them out and they'd flip them over and all the kids would sit on them so that they were at the same level as Reese. And it was just so thoughtful, you know, and ever since then, from when he was in 2nd grade all the way up through his years in the school system at Pine Hill and then in the middle school and high school, it was just an amazing experience for us. This town was really, really helpful in including him. He made amazing friends and he's still in contact with them today. He texts them and they get together when they can. He managed to, with the help of the school system and the community, he can, you know, drive his motorized wheelchair on his own. He has an amazing communication system that the school helped him put in place. He learned how to independently do his work, take exams, do the MCAS, do SATs, and get his high school diploma. And now he's taking courses at Boston College and he's in an independent living situation where he's going to be moving into his own place. So I just give a lot of credit to this town for really helping us out. And that is why I'm on the committee, to kind of help that.
He's pretty amazing. Also, I'm still chair of the Boy Scout troop, so he also participated in the Boy Scouts.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I gave the commencement address when he graduated,
Yeah, it was
so
really cool.
pretty special.
Yeah, and
So I'd say a couple of things. First, the Disability Advisory Committee is like one of my pet projects back in the 2000s. My wife had a brother who had cystic fibrosis. And watching him decline over time, it was awful thing. I helped write this charge, so I'm a little possessive with it. I want to hear what you're going to do. It was a hard fight to get a disability committee. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. It took a lot of push, a lot of struggle. And my wife served on the committee for a very long time. There was a tremendous need for this, and there's a story that I've told before, and I want to tell it again. There was a meeting here in this space, and the fire alarms went off. And everybody cleared out as fast as they couldn't use the elevators, so everybody headed for the doors. Everybody was gone except for a woman in a wheelchair and me. And I didn't feel I could leave her. And you can't use the elevators, the only way you could get out of here was a rolled up ladder that we have in the next room. And I was trying to figure out, how do I carry this woman down this ladder to get her out of here? And as a result of that experience, we needed a disability committee. Let me put it that way, to make the long story short. We needed somebody who's going to look at the situation of what happens to if I wasn't there. What happens to her? She kept saying, "Don't leave me alone." What do we do with somebody who's in a wheelchair on the 2nd floor of the building with the elevators off? So fortunately, it was a false alarm or whatever it was. And there was no actual fire. And the firefighters came and they took her down. But please, do your survey. Please look at all these buildings. Look at making things available to people. That life is hard enough for everybody without having them risk their death to come to a select board meeting.
So I have a question. It's a ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. I'm gonna touch this a little bit. I don't know it nearly as much. I think Jeremy or you do. How does that mesh with the Max Architectural Board's requirements? It's essentially because they used to be more stringent ADA. I thought some of the ADA stuff is a copacetic, or they still kind of do the things.
They're similar. they're definitely similar. The Massachusetts Architectural Access Board covers Massachusetts, obviously, and building access. The transition plan would look at general accessibility as well, not just physical access, but other forms of access. So, just to, Nicole described the grant quite well. The Collins Center is the prime consultant, but they have some sub-consultants. They've started doing the physical assessments of the buildings, all town buildings, town hall, the library, police department, fire department, the 1858 house, Pine Hill School, and Lindquist Commons as well, since we hold town meeting there. But they'll look at all, the physical access part of it. So we'll have a report and a study from them. I did mention your issue, Paul, when they were here earlier this week to do the investigation of town hall.
One other thing to consider is because we're redoing the walkways at Farm Pond too. I'm sure Sean will include that in the project, but.
And there's been a lot of talk at the Disability Advisory Committee about open spaces and rec spaces and ball field, play field, that sort of thing. So, to the extent that we can get this study to look into that, we will.
That's why the one dock though has the roll-on capabilities at the pond, but since we're redoing all the walkways, it seems like a time to
I see
incorporate
no
that.
way though that they make it Farm Pond accessible without putting that gate open that they started closing, which I've been dead set against.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been dead set against closing that gate. They close it out of convenience because someone said it's tough to get a fire truck down there and parents are dropping their kids off down there. I think you have to have other means to do that.
yep.
And I don't know if that's gonna come up before another Farm Pond meeting or something, but I'd like to really push that to stop them from closing that gate when the.
Yeah, you might have to, your next meeting, you might want to have a comment regarding Farm Pond this season coming up.
So we can vote here. And that's the Board of Selectmen decision. If you want to put that on the agenda, we can make some
Yeah,
votes.
That's right,
I
we're in
would like
charge of
that
that.
actually left open, because it was convenient for a few people. Well, someone said, oh, it'd be tough to get a fire truck down here, but it's been that way for longer than I've been alive. And then unfortunately, parents, whatever conveniently, drive their kids down so they can get off and then drive up. And then so that kind of bothered some people. Whatever, don't get me started. Yeah, Marion?
Yeah, just a little bit more on what the consultant's helping with. They're actually doing all the training that was mentioned. The first training session, which is coming up April 14th, 10 to noon in this room. We've invited board committee members, and interested public, staff members. We'll likely, because we'll hopefully have most of town hall there, we may temporarily close town hall so people can attend that training. But it'll be, that first training is on the basics of accessibility, the ADA requirements and local government and practical strategies for providing accessible government services. So it's more than just the physical access, it's all access. The second training focuses on digital accessibility, like our website or communications. That training's on May 7th from 10 to 11:30. Again, put that invitation out broadly, and that many boards and committees put out communications that they should consider the accessibility aspects when they put those communications out. So just wanted to plug those trainings, give a little more context.
Okay, very good. 14th?
Yeah, the first training is
May
April
7th.
14th, and the second is May 7th.
It'll be posted on the webpage, right?
Right.
Post on the webpage, we sent out an email blast. There is a sign up link, so the consultant has an idea of folks attending. And it'll be some great training.
Mhm.
They're also gonna look at some of our policies or suggest policies that may not exist. They'll review some of our emergency response plans. Chief Ward is getting those sent over to the consultant so that they can be reviewed for accessibility components.
Marion had
I'm sure I'm missing some
Oh,
questions.
Mary?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add that Nicole is one of my heroes in town. And she also is serving on the open space committee that's writing a new open space and recreation plan for the town that needs to be submitted to the state this year. And this year in particular, the state is emphasizing, it's one of the things they're emphasizing is ADA compliance. But it's really valuable to have Nicole representing the ADA community on our committee because we have a lot of work to do to make all of our recreational facilities and our open spaces more accessible to people. So just so you know, she's working on that too.
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can I add one request of you? Only if you have the bandwidth for it and it's appropriate for your committee. But can you look into ways to making town meeting accessible for the hearing impaired?
That's one of the exact things that the committee, that the grant is
Great.
is covering. Because it's not all just about, we always think about what we see, the physical disabilities, but there's definitely the hearing issues and or all the rooms can have loops in them and things like that. All of the issues for, and that's why we're including Lindquist Commons. It's just gonna make it
Great.
For all of our meetings. For voting, you know, we're looking at everything that you would come in for any kind of services you need in town hall or any of the meetings you go to. A lot of the, you know, recreation programs, making sure that that's open to everybody as well.
So you're meeting with we're required to have an ADA coordinator. And I
Yes.
think Jeremy is the coordinator.
Yeah.
So you're meeting with him hopefully regularly, right?
Yes, yeah, we're in contact and we've had meetings together and Jeremy's been great, really supportive and I think it's just, I feel like we really got a lot of momentum right now, and especially if we get these survey results back. I think it will be very telling and will give us an idea of where we need to look into helping our town move forward. So.
Just stay in touch with Jeremy. He's the guy to get things done.
Okay. Other than that, just this information, no votes on our end or anything like that. Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much for not just the time here, but the time, the big picture time you're putting in for the company. Absolutely, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on, we have the ARPA funded projects.
Perfect.
Right, HVAC next. Oh, that's missing. Next sliding.
No, that's 7. We're on item 6 on the agenda right now.
Okay, see, I flagged all the things, and for some reason, I don't have the ARPA thing in my backup material, but that's fine, let's hit out, let's hit the ARPA stuff.
Here,
You want to share?
yeah, you just share mine.
I do have it, but it has a different cover, the cover says ADA. Okay, good enough.
ADA, ARPA, same thing.
So are you speaking to this, or?
Yeah, I'll just give a brief summary. Dave Welch is also here. And I think Sean is on Zoom land, so we can give an update on specific projects, but just in summary, bringing an update back to the board for the ARPA funds, the federal funds that were provided to Sherborn. There's about 1.3 million in ARPA funding that was provided to the town. All of those funds needed to be obligated by this past December, which they were. And interdepartmental agreements were put in place this past December to obligate all the funds for specific projects. There are balances remaining on some of those obligations. Those balances need to be expended by the end of 2026. And there is a summary that Deb maintains, Deb Seifrin, Finance Director, maintains, that was in your packet. There's a handful of projects that do have the remaining balance. The Woodhaven Leland Farms water project, we hope to have most of that work. Sean can give more detail if you'd like, but most of that project will be completed this year, so this calendar year, and all those funds will be expended. So plans are in place there. Contracts are almost in place to tie up those funds with a vendor. The GIS inventory of wells and septic, there's a small balance there. The groundwater protection committee's used it in turn. They're just waiting for some interns to free up after this college session's over. The transformation of the town campus, there are some landscape improvements that they'll continue on this spring on the town hall campus.
Looks great, by the way.
The major funds there were towards the stairway. And you can see there's some disturbance around that the remaining funds will help make it look nice and stabilize. And Dave can give us an update on the Laurel Farms irrigation. the Farm Pond Stormwater project that is, and stair access, that is under design, fairly well advanced in design and going through permitting. The funds remaining are far shy of actually doing the work, the construction work. So we'd envision the remaining balance to be used to help seek grants or kind of continue on the project such that we have a really firm understanding of what the project is and the cost, and pursue grants or maybe include it in the town's capital plan. The compensation and classification study is under contract with a consultant and is underway. We'll have those funds expended within 2 to 3 months. And then the last project, the historic space design project, that's the architectural funds, or the architectural funding for the Sherborn historic items, which is advancing. About a third of that design is completed, and the rest would be expended, in the coming months.
Does the rest of that architectural space design money go toward buildable design, engineering and all that?
So that what you've obligated, that $100,000 covers the entirety of the design through putting together bid specs and plans.
Oh, okay.
That's why, only a third of it is spent thus far, because they're, advanced preliminary design and have done some cost estimates on that. But there's work remaining to get the final design specifications completed.
I mean, does anyone have any specific questions? I certainly would like to hear Laura Fields. I think that was kind of variable about the water supply, the drilling and the yield of the water and stuff like that. Everyone else to me seems straightforward, but does anyone have any questions on anything other than Laurel Fields? Because we'll enter that in a second.
Well, I guess I may be getting ahead of you. I was wondering, the earmarks don't have expirations, or do they?
The earmark, they do, and we keep an eye on those. They have, each of those earmarks has its own separate contract with the Commonwealth, which we've renewed. Actually, the one in the case of Woodhaven Leland, we had that renewed. We just got word that was renewed, even though it's from a prior fiscal year. We were able to retain the funds.
Okay.
But those are all subject to their own agreement. Once they become real, earmarks and real money, then, in that budget cycle, we do a contract between the towns.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't tax dollars, there was a bond issue. So the bond gave it some permanence as opposed to if it had been just
Yeah. So it wasn't
raised and appropriate for that year, it would have expired at the end of the year. But this was part of a bond issue.
All right, so I'll drop back. Any questions about any of these line items other than Laurel Fields? So we'll see how that presentation is.
Yeah, these Woodhaven security features. Sounds like security is important, but we haven't spent any of it.
Yeah, that was that was an earmark for this current fiscal year. The police department has done a study that actually helped inform the request to get this earmark. They're working with Klaus and we should have a scope shortly to get that work implemented. There'll be some security cameras that will tie back into the police department. Those funds will be expended very quickly now that we have a vendor in.
Great, because the security of our residents there is really important.
Yeah, we didn't get the contract, as I mentioned. The next step in getting the earmark is the contract. We didn't get that until February. The police are working diligently now.
All right, we're ready to hear about Laurel Fields?
Yeah.
With you.
Thanks. Do I need to introduce myself or?
Sure, for the
audience,
you're on camera.
Sure. Dave Welch from Recreation. So I thought it'd be helpful before we jump into sort of the financial aspects of the ARPA funding is to just review where we've been and what's left to do and try to keep it tidy within one page. So what you're looking at here is some of the major project milestones that have occurred since the project initiation of August of 2022. As you look at some of these were done, as due diligence, and some of these were done to help improve the results and the yield of what was developed. And so, for example, the overburden test that was done just to see, do we actually need to go down significantly and develop these wells in the first place. When those tests did not turn out well, we moved on to, okay, well, where would be the best place to do these wells, which was the fracture trace analysis. Once those were identified, the wells were developed. The yields from the wells weren't sufficient enough to have a system without storage. And if we had storage, we want to have better yields out of those wells. So at that point, the decision was made to enhance the wells using a process called Aqua Freeze that was done about a year ago. Coming out of that, there was some testing done between March and October timeframe just to look at the analysis, sort of a longer duration test to see how much did the wells with the enhancement actually improve. And one of the two wells was actually almost nearly doubled from less than 5 gallons per minute up to 8 gallons per minute. In total, between the two wells, it's about 10 to 11 gallons per minute, which was more than sufficient for our consultant to go forward and design for the system.
Not to jump in, so you got 1 gallon a minute, I want
It was like 2 and change.
okay.
Yeah, it was, but it was, because you're already money into it, you still use it.
Yeah, of course, once you drill it, of course, yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But you're absolutely correct. So thankfully we did 2 wells.
I'm glad to have the 1 and 1 to 10, that's great to get 5, in turn 5 to 10.
So with that, with the results, the consultant went forward, came up with design, created bid documents. The intent was actually to go out to bid late winter, early spring of this year. We're about at that time. What has happened since then and what was going on concurrently while that was being done was Eversource and their engineers were working on their own design and estimates. When that came back in January of 2025 or January this year, they came back significantly higher than anyone was anticipating. A lot of that has to do with additional work that needed to be done at the street and the type of service that was going to be required on site at Lowell Fields. So because of that significant increase, we actually went back to our consultant and asked for a revised design. We started to really pick apart, and I'll walk through some of those decision elements in a bit, pick apart and say, okay, well, where can we peel back on some of the things that we initially wanted to try to limit the expense. And even in doing that, you're going to see in a moment, it's still significant cost left in order to complete this. In terms of the work that actually needs to be done to bring the project to completion, that's what's in the right-hand column of the slide you're looking at in front of you. To get this out to bid, talking with the consultant this week. We're still on target. The ideal time to do this project for recreation is a very narrow window of time each year. It's when the spring season ends, which is the middle of June through the middle of August. And so this project can be completed within 2 months. That's not the issue. The issue for us is making sure that we start on time if we're going to do it in any given year. And so on this timeline, we want to get the out to bid in the 3rd week of April. We're pre-meeting, invite people to the site the last week of April, view bids, sign contracts for the end of May, and get the work started by the end of June. There are some things that to help save costs and reduce the overhead that could be parsed out from the broader project that included some of the electrical work and the work with the well pumps. In terms of the wild card in all of this is the Eversource piece. The Eversource piece, it's the type of thing I understand in talking to people working on projects with Eversource and talking to Eversource themselves, is that it may or may not have power at the site by the time the work is completed in mid-August. Now, we can still test the system and validate that it's working, to bring generators to do that, so it'd be an incremental expense there. But whether the Eversource piece is done, before or after the work would be complete would be an open question that we can't answer tonight.
what is it, do they have to, is there no, three-phase right outside the,
Correct.
where they bring it from Natick or something?
Yeah, so it's, new pole, it's, and then you gotta bring it onto the site, a couple poles into the site, get it underground, and it is three-phase.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, that, I've run that before.
So there's gonna be a water tank fill up with this drop by drop from the wells and then use them, or is it gonna be no water tank?
No, the design, part of the reason why the cost has continued to escalate on this project is that we did have to include storage in the design in the end. There was a hope initially, before we developed the wells, that you would have a significant flow rate where you wouldn't need to do any storage. And that would have, allowed us to complete the project in a short period of time and probably with just the ARPA funds that have been, assigned to the project. But, the storage that we're looking at, I think the draw is gonna be around 15,000 gallons a day, based on the flow rate. It's the least expensive way to do that from a storage standpoint is to use 3 5,000 gallon tanks. The 5,000 gallon tank is a very common commodity in the storage tank world, from what I understand. And that's you can get a custom tank at 10,000 or 15,000, but 5,000 tanks in a series is what was recommended.
And your pumps from the tanks won't be elevated or anything like that to make pressure, I'm assuming. Pump right from the tank.
Just be on the surface.
Yeah, and your pump, so you have that above ground pump to actually push it, okay. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, if your irrigation demand is 20 gallons a minute, and you're drawing 10 gallons a minute, it makes sense. You got pump for twice as long and store it in between. All right, so is there anything needed from us in this? We can ask more technical questions, but I'm just kind of clarifying this administratively. Do we have to vote to release more funds, or is this an update as we move forward?
We're not asking for any more funds, but we are sharing with you how we propose to get to the finish line, which is what the slide's getting into. And as you'll see, that there's not enough in the ARPA funds themselves to be able to complete the project. So we're not asking the select board for additional funds, but we thought we should be very forthright in terms of how the Recreation Commission sees completing the project. So on the far left-hand column is the ARPA project expenditures to date, and I've tagged and highlighted where that money has gone and who has paid that money. And so that's an inclusive list. So if you were to bump up that total against Deb Seifring's report in terms of how much money has been exhausted of ARPA so far, that's where the money has gone. So we see Geosphere for $121,000. That not only includes the well development, that also includes the enhancement in the aquifer process that was done to improve the yield. The Cummings timed yield test was that $3,000 was spent after that enhancement was done to confirm what the actual yield rate was going to be, and there were some other incidental expenses there as well. In terms of what's remaining with the project cost, you can see it's nearly $100K just for the other source piece in and of itself, which is in part and parcel the electrician cost, the way the system is designed and needing the storage and the type of power we're bringing in, both in the work as well as the components and hardware that would give the site the electrician costs have also scaled accordingly. So those, not only do we have a higher source power site amount, but we also have that. The reason why the well pumps and the electrician and the water rail travelers are outside of the bid is that we were trying to decrease the amount of overhead attached to things that can be done concurrently or outside of the bidded project itself. So for example, those water rail travelers were initially inside of the bid, and the estimate inside of the bid was gonna be around $40,000. And so we met with the company that does this. They came to Sherborn, we sat down with them, like, can you give us a quote on if we were just to buy this directly from you? And this is, you're saving about $16,000 there. So some of these, where we could, both in design as well as the components of the design, we're trying to continuously find ways to address the cost of the project.
I have a question, Eric.
Yeah,
Do you want-
yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, please, yeah, go ahead.
Dave, I'm confused, but maybe I'm misunderstanding. You're showing on the right that you'll use 186,000 of ARPA funds, but the ARPA expenditures is 163. So is there another 17,000 of funds from the 86 that we're going to spend of ARPA funds? Why does?
Oh, no,
I think
it's gonna
addition
combine.
remaining.
They've already spent 163 and they're gonna spend another 186 out of
Yeah,
ARPA.
So the total amount of ARPA
Give them 350 or
is
something.
Okay.
around 350.
All right, okay.
That's correct. So I might be around an error there. We looked at that number.
So the 186 that's just point forward.
Correct.
That's their balance right now.
That's the balance.
This is ARPA expenditures
That's
to
already,
date,
yeah,
to date.
yeah.
Yeah, so bottom left is what we spend, top right is what's left.
And all I care about is that middle bottom and the right bottom equal out. So-
Yeah, yeah.
So I have a question about the funding sources proposed.
Yes.
So you're proposing effectively 200,000 out of your operating and revolving funds. Now I know I see 40 of that is from this year, so we're looking at 164 for fiscal 26. Now between your operating budget and the revolving fund spend limit, which advisory just set at 150, you've got about 300,000 to spend in fiscal 26. So that's more than half of the amount of money that's allotted to the Recreation Commission for next year. So I would assume that that is going to put a squeeze on what you can do for all of recreation aside from this project next year. So it's like what is being cut out in fiscal 26 to make room for $164,000 worth of.
I can answer my interpretation of that. Okay, so my understanding is, at the time that advisory made the recommendation to set the limit at 150, was that there would be the opportunity in any given year, next fiscal year, or whatever the limit is in any given year, that recreation could come back to advisory and the board, or select board, and request to go beyond that limit in order to utilize funds in the revolving fund.
I see. So that 124 you have listed is most likely going to require a vote of us and advisory to essentially release more funds for you to spend.
If it's kind of correct, if that is occurring in fiscal year, and I would actually argue that even if it occurred in this year, we'd probably be up against it. Even, I think the current one is what, 250, 275. So I think either way,
Okay.
if it was in this fiscal year, we'd be asking for that, and if it's in the next fiscal year, we'll certainly be asking for that.
I mean, I'll just simply say that I was really like I hadn't heard about the well rehab results. I remember last time I think you met before as you were proposing it. I was very pessimistic about the 5 gallons and 1 gallon coming out of it. We got 10 gallons a minute. I think that's great. So sounds like this is gonna be a successful project. Pleased about that. Makes it worth it. I was hesitant on putting more money toward it if it was only bad yield, but good shape.
Where are the tanks going to go on the property? And I don't even have a concept of how large is a 5,000 gallon tank.
They're not terribly large. I mean, the area that the design has them in, so as you're facing towards the orchard as you drive in the back left corner up on the hill, there's some that space. There's space there that we can't use for athletic fields. And it's the height actually works well as it's higher obviously than the fields, but more importantly, it's next to areas of water. The boundary of it either barely encroaches within that 100-foot limit or it's just outside of it. In either case, I don't think it's going to be a conservation issue from where the design location is, and it's certainly not going to impede any of the playable surface area.
Dave, you mentioned that you have modified the plan to fit how much water you're going to have. Have we seen that plan, or do you have it available?
I can send you the updated plan. What's probably changed since the last time you looked at it is just the one of the decisions that was made was to decrease the total amount of conduit going out into the wettest portion of the facility. So if we use the last drought as a proxy, which occurred this past fall, we had like nearly 3 straight months without precipitation. The 2/3 of the facility that the revised plan has is where we have the water being directed to. The part that we removed is on the wetter side. If you were to look at the field in November, the part that was the furthest away from where it's usually moist was basically gone.
Do you have this in your computer? Can you share your screen?
I don't.
Oh, okay. All right.
But basically, you're either down to dirt or just brown weeds and grass. However, the portion on the left-hand side as you drive in, which is the wetter side, actually still has some green grass, especially where there was some shade coming through as the sun angle dropped in the second half of the season. So we'd like to have the whole thing irrigated, don't get me wrong. But if we have to pick our poison and be judicious with spending, it's on the drier 2/3 we're most concerned about. I should note that we spent tens of thousands of dollars last fall on fertilizer and seed at Laurel that went for naught because we didn't have any water. And so for us, it is a lot of money. There's a lot of expense associated with this, but the objective is to maintain natural fields and given the use that we have at Laurel, we see this as a good investment.
Have the parking lots already been revised? There was a plan for improving the parking.
To what extent? As it relates to this project?
Right, to Laurel Field. I mean, it's outside the irrigation project, I guess, so I'll withdraw that question.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if I can speak to that tonight.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Are there any, I'm just curious, I probably missed this in the prior meeting, but are there any Board of Health or Concom approvals required, or is everything set?
That would be required. Sean, is Sean still here?
Yeah, he is.
Sean, I don't know if you want to provide any insight onto that side of it.
Well, once the well pumps are in, we'll run a long-term test that the Board of Health will review. The pumps aren't currently in. We try to get them in before winter, and that we didn't pull that off. And obviously, we don't have power. We can bring a generator out for like a 48-hour pump test. So that hasn't happened. A final sign off will take place then. Again, that's part of, David touched on why we split up some of this to go out for the public bid versus what we're handling separately. Not just Eversource, but the electrician, because that's kind of the infrastructure portion of it. And the well pumps we wanted to do somewhat separate so we can just get them in. We have a contractor that the town uses for all the wells. All the municipal buildings. So we spec those out. Those will get installed, and then the base, what gets bid out will be everything, not including the pumps, to hook up the irrigation system.
Sounds like you don't have any particular concerns about the necessary approvals.
I didn't understand. I didn't hear that question.
Are you concerned about any just approvals or any permitting or anything to finalize this?
Well, yeah, there will be permits that the contractor will have to pull out when they, after the bid. And Concom will also have to sign off, but we purposely left the system outside of Concom's jurisdiction, the tanks. And the only thing that's even close is the tank units, which would most likely be approved anyway. They're just poly tanks that sit on top of the ground. It'll either be a gravel base or a concrete base under the tanks, but it's on existing. It's a grass surface now, so it'd be modified, but we're not going to be clearing any land for that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? This here? I guess thank you very much for the update.
Thanks,
I was
Dave.
glad to see some of that information about the increased yield of the well. That makes me frankly do the project very differently. Thank you for the work. Okay, so moving on, it is Pine Hill HVAC replacement cost.
Yeah, this was just a placeholder, based on what occurred last time.
And just to update people, we had voted that to transfer, I think it was $75,000 to fund 2 phases of the HVAC pending advisories vote. They voted in the positive, so the transfer's happening.
So, pending approval by DESI for the use of those, the food monies, we'll either go forward with the base bid or the base plus the.
I take it we haven't heard today from
Did
Desi.
not hear today from Don regarding that. I'll check in tomorrow.
Alright.
We have some time to exercise the bid.
Good. All right. Sound more urgent last time. But yes. All right, so moving on. We have our consent agenda. Any motions or modifications relative to the consent agenda?
Yeah, I want to move approval, but I have 2 minor little edits to the minutes. The second set of minutes. But they're not substantive, they're just technical.
Which date is this?
I can review them with you if you want, but I just wanted to give it to Diane, make the motion subject to it. It's the second set of minutes, which was
Can we just move that we approve them subject to your revisions?
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. I can tell you what they
I would
were
make
if you want.
That motion?
Can you describe the substance of them? Just describe, say I'm changing this to that without having to find the exact word.
Yeah, so there's a section there where Eric Johnson read the articles and asked that it be wholly placed on the articles, and then it says, the following articles were. And I want to put the word held. The following articles were held, because otherwise there's no
That makes sense.
subject.
Yep.
And then the other one was, there's this reference here to a historical museum project. We don't have a historic museum project. I wanted to change that to a historic display space project for reasons that we already
I might as well
discussed.
mix that. I'm gonna use the
Yep.
word museum.
Yeah, but
I-
you mentioned the reason for that before. You told us that.
Yeah. So 2 little changes in that second set of minutes. I don't know where the first page is.
I think we get the intent. That probably tells us enough. Does anyone want to make a motion relative with the intent of Paul's
Yeah, I would move that we approve the minutes as Diane can amend with the Paul's corrections.
with Paul's amendment as described. and the intent of it,
Amend
so we
as
don't have to get the
described.
Exact wordage.
Yes, that's my
I
motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Select board reports.
Well, before we get there, also move approval of the rest of the consent agenda. Jeremy wants to get paid, I assume.
Yeah.
What, I
Okay.
thought didn't you move the consent agenda with Paul's edits to the minutes?
That's what I thought I did,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was,
I
yeah.
just heard, sorry.
That's done.
No, it's all right.
That's right.
No, it's good to clarify.
Okay, select board reports. Anyone,
You guys been in meetings with you guys all week long. I haven't had any time to do it.
that's so true. That is true.
Just to repeat what I put in the email to you guys, that the governor signed the extension of virtual meetings.
Yep.
And so we're free to run amok with either in-person meetings, hybrid meetings, virtual meetings, and we can reduce the quorum too. So
What was the
Still go
extension
through.
date of it?
it's 27 months.
27 months.
Odd number.
2027.
Okay,
So it's gonna go till June of 2027. So it's
Okay.
For 2 years and 1 quarter.
March of
I gotcha.
2000 and
so they tied it to the
25
fiscal year,
June.
it effectively, yeah. Good.
Okay.
All right.
That's why it takes it to the end of the fiscal year. That makes sense.
So we
Okay.
can still lower the quorum to 0 for next.
I want
2
like, I
years.
want like 1. Honestly, I really do.
no, the quorum reduction statute only allows you to go to 10, I believe. I don't think. it goes below 10.
Well.
The Elson Advisory running the pen from the stage.
Yeah, 9 voters from advisory. nobody else needs to attend, right?
And I'll say,
Good night.
you know, I've been pushing us
And
for like,
sometimes 8.
for like 6 months. I've been pushing us to kind of get back here, and I'm glad we've done that. I'm obviously not going to be on the board, you know, unless Stephen runs a strong writing campaign after May or whatever. I encourage the board to continue with this hybrid thing, but you know, obviously you guys are going to do what you want. But I think, and I wanted people to kind of taste it before I get off the board and kind of get a feel for it. I find this very natural. I find it very good. I understand maybe in certain times where there is, you know, flu concerns or this and that, we revert back a little bit, but it's just my commentary to these whole meetings and live meetings, that's all.
Like I said, I think travel too. We may have select board members that can participate remotely
Absolutely.
if they're
Oh, I
on the
love
road.
hybrids, no question about that. But
Yeah.
just like so many years later, we're still like all the pages on the screen. So I mean, this has happened to me now 3 times. Maybe it's just a me thing, where someone on the street has come up now, you know, and recognized me. And I don't recognize them. So I can't recognize anyone on Zoom. I'll see someone on Zoom and talk to them for an hour and meet them the next day and not recognize them. And it's so different than being live. It just is. It's much more sense of community. It's much better dialogue, frankly. You know, I do, and everything kind of runs through the chair when you're in Zoom. Where here, there is a little bit more dialogue, and I only rein it in when it gets like real out of control. And I think it's more natural conversation. The voting all at once makes more sense versus roll calls for everything. And just countless things I like about it.
Well, I'm amazed at how big you guys are. Just to see these little thumbnail sized people. And that you're actually,
I mean, I have put on 10 pounds actually. So that's about it. All right, that's my commentary onto that.
Okay.
No more select board reports. I guess let's go through the town administrator updates.
Sure, yeah, a few, I have some listed here. Just wanted to give you folks an update on the state and federal earmark requests. Those have all been submitted through our US Senator's office and Congressman Auchincloss's office. So all of that information has been submitted. Thank you for the letters of support. All 3 have been included. We've also put in a similar request to our state representatives and our state senators, Roush. So that information is all in for their consideration and putting those earmarks into the budget request for state and federal. And you know, the priority being the Sherborn historic items display and preservation space, obviously. So
yeah, I hope you made the same edits to everybody's letter. Took out
we did, yes.
the fact that, okay.
And in the write-up online is the web portal that the US Senators were using, and as well as the state level. It's not called museum, it's
Great.
display space. To update there, I don't have any, was hoping to have some updates on staffing, I don't today, sorry. Unfortunately, we don't. The Board of Assessors, just wanted to give you an update. As you know, we've got 2 vacancies of a 3-member board. That's an appointment by the select board. The vacancies have been posted for nearly 30 days, and so far we've had a pretty limited response, not great. I think maybe 3 or so. However, we're aware of 2 actual Sherborn residents that are interested that will be putting in applications soon. So that looks promising. Hopefully we can get those folks back to you for appointment.
Jeremy, this is a board in which Sherborn they don't all have to be Sherborn residents, but if there are Sherborn residents, they're preferred or something like that.
I believe one
One has to
spot
be.
is a preferred Sherborn resident,
Yeah.
and the
Right.
1 remaining member is a Sherborn resident.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the 2 open spots are basically wide open, and
So
Okay.
I did talk to an assessor in another town was complaining about being an unpaid assessor in his town, he's got elected. And I did say there was opportunity to work in Sherborn, and I assume that we pay
You do,
people.
yes. The Board of Assessors get paid $150 per meeting. So there is a small stipend that Board of Assessors do receive, so if that person's interested,
He
send
said
them
he'd think about
our
it.
way.
But it was a lot of work being an assessor.
An update on the hazard mitigation plan. The fire chief received a grant not long ago, which you approved. That work is underway. A consultant was chosen, and there was a kickoff meeting. and with the steering committee, lots of town staff and other, interested parties at a kickoff meeting. There'll be some public outreach and 2 public information sessions as a result, or as part of that update. I think the first being this September and then the next being next January. It's about a year-long process to update this hazard mitigation plan, but there'll be some public involvement along the way. The goal is to have it reviewed and approved by MEMA and FEMA by February 2026. The update on the Jamison Field lighting project. That was the private donation of the lighting for the baseball field. The equipment and materials were actually delivered today and are on schedule to be installed by opening day, which is May 3rd. And
That was one of the stipulations of the donation also, wasn't it?
so
Yeah.
things are moving along quickly. So
Yeah.
Big delivery today, lots of stuff was delivered. The vendor is all lined up to do the installation and pending promising weather, it'll be complete. The Brush Hill Cell Tower lease RFP was issued, been advertised on the town website, in the newspaper, and the Central Register. That's for a 20-year term. That current lease comes due this June. So we're on track to have something before you as a recommendation prior to that. The proposals are due from interested parties by May 9th. We'll have an evaluation committee that'll convene, and we'll bring back to the select board for a decision prior to May 29th.
So some towns do nothing on the fear that there'll be no buddy bidding, or they may pull out. So a lot of carriers are no longer in the business of doing these towers. They sold it off to American Towers. One complicated story here. So instead of doing anything, they do nothing. And so when the 20 years ends, they just hold over and keep going. And the checks keep arriving. So we're authorized to do a 20-year lease. We did a 20-year lease. And essentially, they continue.
Yeah, they have. So what we've heard, so American Tower is one of the lessees of one of your towers. They are very interested in responding to this proposal.
They
want a guaranteed term, so they want another 20-year term so that they can plan on doing capital improvements. And also would like to bring on sub-lessees, which the way the RFP is written, Sherborn would receive a profit share if there was additional carriers mounted. Right now, we're not seeing any additional investment from the lessees on these towers because they don't have a definite term. So to get another 20-year term, we need to put out an RFP.
So I know one of the executives over at American Tower, they want to buy towers and they don't want to lease towers. And so they'll ultimately make a proposal to buy the towers and they'll pay us. So let's say the rent for 20 years is, let's say 200,000, I'm just making the number up. They'll offer us 200,000 up front to buy the tower. And they get all the profit from adding additional carriers to it and so on, because they're in touch with all the carriers and they don't have to do our bidding and all this kind of stuff. They're much more efficient. And then we'll be facing the economic, that's why a lot of my towns are doing nothing, just letting things slide. They don't want to get involved in that. But I will wager you a cup of coffee that you're going to end up with a proposal that they're going to want to acquire the property. And some of these sites are Article 97 land, these enacted legislature, all this kind of stuff that we can push back on and say we can't do it.
Yeah, so they actually, there was a proposal from American Tower for my tenure to purchase the Brush Hill Tower. It's my understanding that that was discussed and vetted and that was determined that was the path.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
You want to do betting a cup of coffee? That's your biggest bet? Come on, Paul.
So on that, the brush hill cell
Like
tower
a happy
alone,
vehicle.
it's about $75,000 a year that you see in revenue from that one tower. And that in the RFP, we put a floor, so we're hoping to see proposals that are in excess of that. More to come on that, but it'll be brought back to you for your final decision review.
The town owns the tower.
The town owns the tower.
The land.
The Brush Hill Tower, they own the tower, owns the land.
And the land and the
and
building.
Those are all town owned.
Well, we have equipment that I think we got when we did the Holbrook regionalization, where they upgraded the tower equipment supporting the emergency services too.
That's correct, yeah. There's equipment in the facility, in the building that is town owned and on the tower, which the town owns also. Sean has his hand up that
Go ahead.
maybe a more detail.
See his hand up, yeah.
I think he's unmuting.
Recall that this tower is actually on restricted land too. It's on town forest land.
Yeah.
So it's never for sale.
So they have alternate technology where they can put these little poles on telephone poles. Little.
That's the 5G, that's the 5G network.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the name of it
Yeah,
is.
it's the 5Gs.
And so they're actually trying to get out of this. Not only do they not, the carriers themselves don't want to own the towers, because they don't want to have the maintenance responsibility, and they
I
want to
understand.
landlords.
The 5Gs though have not been that great because they're only in more urban areas dense. So they actually tried to make exemptions because things like, I guess, a pole, utility pole is exempt from many different things. It's not regular DPU, but whatever, telegraph and whatever department there. And so they were proposing these poles, looked like a utility pole, but it was actually a mini cell tower. But they were like 3 feet diameter and like 80 feet high, and towns are rejecting them. I don't think 5G right now with the limited range is really gonna take over in these less dense areas, to be honest with you.
It's a mile and a half
Honestly,
range roughly.
It's probably the greater
5G.
threat of like Musk's satellites are probably a greater threat than 5G is. And I'm not joking either, it probably really is.
Yeah,
Those satellites are probably.
Starlinks, I think they call
That's
them.
right.
Mark went over Sherborn.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you are fortunate right now. There is interest in the Brush Hill Tower.
Good.
Folks, vendors still want to use that site, so.
Right.
It's somewhat timely. You can lock in a 20-year term.
I think it's definitely a good idea.
Um,
Yeah, I'd lock in
the
a 40-year term if you could.
Well, we're precluded by that from, but we'll get more into that.
Yep.
I think the maximum we go is the 20-year term. The only update I have on the North Sherborn Water Sewer District is the commission is scheduled its first meeting.
All right,
That's it.
That's it. You could close the meeting for that, Eric.
All right. Cruise along. Very limited there. All right, any motions relative to this meeting?
Go ahead, Paul.
Move adjournment.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
and Diane can call Carrie because the Canadians are leading the Bruins 2-0 right now.